Hello dear YouTube friends, good morning or afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is. Welcome to my channel and welcome to those of you who are here for the first time. So today I'm going to talk about chronic pain, as I'm going to give an update on my life. And yes, those of you who contacted me in the past year to ask me how I was doing, thank you very much. I did not respond. That is to say, I formulated many responses, but I didn't yet respond as I was in the process I will describe in a minute. So I'm going to talk about chronic pain in general, not just me, but just in general. And I'm going to also talk about the importance of my illustrated journals and how these books are they cover about a year, I think. These books are my medicine in the sense that they keep me level-headed when my world is upside down. They allow me to sometimes wallow. They allow me to, they help me discover what feelings are bugging me or what thoughts. These are incredibly important instruments to me to feel okay, even when things are not very okay, but also to feel very okay when things are very okay. They make me feel even more okay. So what I'm going to do in this video is in part 2, I'm going to show you quite a bit of my journal pages, my journal illustrations. Although I always feel that an illustration needs to illustrate a text, but in my case it illustrates a situation. So you can call it journal illustrations, you can call it drawings, visual journal, art journal, you know, maybe some are even, sometimes I do columns when it's about the world, not as much about my personal situation, but how I experience things that are going on in the world. So there are many things and can be described in many ways. But the reason why I'm showing you this is to show you that in the first place, you know, this drawing your life is something absolutely wonderful, you know, not just a pastime, but it can really be one of your best friends. And in part 3, I am going to invite you to make a drawing of your life and to hopefully share it with me, because I was working on a project before I got interrupted again, and I'm picking the project back up, and what I need is some input from the outside world, because, you know, here in my studio, I'm just working on my own with just my own mind, and I am looking to find some spark from the outside world, and I'll explain all about that later in part 3 of this video. So let's start with part 1 before I show you my journals in part 2. I'm not going to show you all, you know, I selected some pages because I don't want to wear you out watching all these books. So life, I want to keep this part very short. So I said in previous videos that I didn't want this channel to become about my health issues. But the thing is that once I solved the chronic abdominal problem, the chronic abdominal pain that I had, I wanted to get back to my old life as I knew it. However, when I tried, I found out that my old life didn't exist anymore. All that was left was debris. And that was disheartening. But I thought, you know, there is always the one thing I do have left, that's myself. So I'm going to tie some walking boots on my feet and I'm going to walk like I used to do. Unfortunately, there was a surprise in store, because I've always had some pain when I was walking, but I always thought that it was just a matter of practice, needed to get fit. My body needed to get used to longer and longer distances. I was pushing myself, because I had a dream to literally close the door behind me and walk all the way to La Finisterra in Spain, Santiago de Compostela, and then La Finisterra. Yeah, that was a really great dream. that really helped me get through the chronic abdominal pain. All the plans I made at the time were a sublime survival skill to get me through the abdominal pain, during which I promised myself, once the pain is gone, this is what I'm going to do. So the pain went. Hooray! I mean, I felt so lucky. I felt so blessed to be one of those people who was actually lucky enough to no longer be dealing with that kind of pain. However, there was a new pain, but I figured, come on, chin up, walk. You will get used to it. Well, my body did not get used to it. And I went to the doctor and she checked me and I said, I think this just, need to train more. Maybe I need some advice. And she says, I think you need an x-ray. Okay, let's do an x-ray. Why not? She called me Max. She said, I'm sorry, love, but you're going to need surgery. Surgery? What the hell is going on? Well, the joint in my ankle is like almost completely worn and torn. Right. So I went to a surgeon. He said, let's do surgery. And I said, is there nothing in between? Like, yeah, there is something in between. We can have special shoes made for you. And then you'll be able to walk without pain. Now, that was a lie. That was a lie. I've got the most expensive shoes in the world. 2 pairs of them, because while they were making pair number 1, they already saw it wasn't going to work. So they started pair number 2, and I paid for the bunch of it. And oh my God, they hurt like hell. Seriously, these shoes should only be used for torture practices and nothing else. Or maybe not, let's not do torture practices. I can't really think of someone I would like to do this to. So let's not, but seriously, I can throw them away, and I think I will. I'm pretty sure I will. One day I'm going to ritually burn them somewhere, because they cost us an incredible fortune. The pain got worse. And also, I had asked the surgeon, why do I have this problem? I mean, when you're 80 years old, it's quite normal. Your joint starts wearing and tearing. And he just looked up and down at me like, well, you're a big girl. What else? And I was like, no, that can't be it, because then the problem would also be on the other side. I have 2 ankles. I walk with 2 feet at the same time. Can't be it. But wherever I went, I didn't get any answers. I went to my doctor, my PE, and I said to her, look, I need help. No, sorry. No, hold on. Yes, I went to my PE and I said, I am in limbo. What am I going to do? Am I going to get surgery? Yes or no? I don't trust a surgeon. And she said, you've every right not to trust your surgeon. What he said to you is was not really okay. And, giving you these very expensive shoes, making you pay for such things that were absolutely never, ever going to work to begin with. I understand you no longer trust him. And she sent me to a specialized clinic. And here is where I'm going to make it very short, because waiting lists were very long and a lot of things happened. But in the end, I was seen by a thorough surgeon who had x-rays taken, scans taken, and the ultimate verdict was that the damage in my ankle is there because I had an accident as a child with 2 feet. Two feet. The surgeon at the time only checked out 1 foot, never had x-rays taken of both feet, just the one. I got treated for the 1 foot, not for the other. However, that foot was broken as well. The heel bone had broken, it grew back on in a slightly tilted position. And what that did, as I walked on it for over 40 years, is that it sort of like tilted, the joints in my foot. So my toes are flat on the surface, they are straight, but all the bones between my heel and my toes are twisted. And therefore the wear and tear is not only limited to the joint itself, but is around the ankle. So it's in this middle part of the foot and in the leg above the ankle. Therefore, surgery is not recommended. Then there were some risks involved, in my case, there is a fair chance that there would be complications in the healing process of the ankle, which would also land me in a wheelchair. So it was not a good day. And I said, what's the alternative? Well, to live with the pain. But I can't walk on it. And he said, use it or lose it. I fell to pieces. I was gone. That, all the time I thought it was going to be fixed, that I would just have to be brave, that I would just have to go through a very painful year, 1.5 years, but that I was going to get better. And then you hear, this is not going to get better. If we do perform surgery, the risks are way too big in your case. Let's not. Wow, that's something I needed to recover from. But then I got admitted into, after an evaluation, a major evaluation. Sorry, I needed to put my foot up, so I needed to go. That must have looked really charming. Well, I don't care very much anymore about whether I'm charming or not. What I care, well, anyway. So I got into the rehab clinic, and fortunately, I fit the bill for their chronic pain treatment. And there was a waiting list, but after the waiting list, there was a wonderful team of people who really helped me loosen up again. Loosen up my thought patterns, my behavior patterns. They helped me accept what I'm dealing with. They never gave me any answers. It's not like I went in and said, what am I to do? No, what they did is they tried to say, let's see how it goes. Let's see if we can make this any better than it was. Let's see if we can still be very active, but if we can avoid the pain. I learned, for example, to recognize that the pain in my ankle actually had 3 faces. There was the stiffness that will very often go away as soon as I move. There is the pain of any of action. So when I'm doing things, there is going to be pain, almost always. And then there's the inflammatory pain. The inflammatory pain is the bitch that we need to avoid. But, it will happen sometimes because you can't always control everything. I learned to recognize the pain. I learned to accept the pain. Although you may hear me curse a lot on bad days, because I also accept that I need to vent, I need to rant when the inflammatory bitch is there. I mean, I'm not going to be quiet about it, right? So where I am today is I am in a way better place than I was even before, even after solving the chronic abdominal pain. Back then, I was very much wrapped up, and that's what happened, I think, with my ankle. The reason why I got into such a cramped up state had everything to do with the previous chronic pain that I'd had in my abdomen. Because that was like, that formed the basis for thoughts and behavioral patterns to try to avoid pain, try to live with it, try to dull it down, try to ignore it, just try not to be in contact with my body. Everything below the neck was like, not feeling that one. Don't want to, the blob there, no, not mine, got nothing to do with it. No, it's not attached, it just looks that way. I was damn scared of that body because the pain it caused and the discomfort and how much it was working against me. It was holding me back from visiting friends. It was holding me back from going into town to flea markets. It was holding me back from enjoying cooking. I mean, I used to love cooking, and then at some point in time, the abdominal pain got really bad and I didn't enjoy cooking anymore. And then the abdominal pain was gone, and then the ankle hurt so bad I didn't enjoy pain anymore because it meant I had to stand on my feet. And all of that combined, it just pushed me into this incredible cramped up state. And I was not really aware when it was happening. When you're in chronic pain, if you have chronic pain or if you know somebody has, you will recognize that, the pain is just one of the problems. The other terrible problem is the exhaustion. It just wears you out to be in so much pain. I mean, when you have a lot of pain, there is no way that in the morning you wake up with 100% energy. No way. And if you do, it will quickly be gone. It will quickly wear out. I got sidetracked. There was a message popping up on my screen. But anyway, the other problem that chronic pain causes is isolation. Now, there is something I want to say about that. I learned, and I really, I was baffled when I read this. 20 to 25% of the Western European population has chronic pain. And we don't talk about it, guys. We do not talk about it. And there is a difference between wallowing, which I absolutely think we should not do. Yes, of course, I have days I need to wallow. That's what I have this book for. I can wallow all I like without bothering anyone, without, putting myself in a situation that I might get confirmation from people who will. I think if you start wallowing together, you might end up in a cycle where you confirm each other's wallowing, and then it might get worse or something. I don't like wallowing, and personally, it never helped me when I did wallow. Sometimes I just needed to get some self-pity out of my chest, and the best way I do it is by laying it down in a book that keeps quiet and that just says, I know your secret, close the covers, put the elastic band around it, no one will ever know. For me, that is the kind of wallowing that I allow myself, as sometimes you do need to let out the energy. What I mean that we don't talk about it is the practicality of it. Like I told one of my best friends also knows about chronic pain. And I said to her, I'm just so tired because when I take a shower in the morning, just standing up in the shower, getting undressed, drying myself off, getting dressed, by the time I get downstairs, I am already exhausted and in a lot of pain. And then she says to me, why don't you get yourself a little stool for the shower? I'm like, right. I never thought about it. No, I just didn't, it didn't come up in my mind because it wasn't part of my world. When you get a disability, like when you're new at having a disability, or when you're new at chronic pain, you really don't know that world yet. You don't know about things that can make your life easier. And you do need to find out. Like at some point, I had to consider getting a mobility scooter because my world had become so small. There was no oxygen left in it. So getting your ass into a mobility scooter, over here in the Netherlands, it's a thing. I have the impression that it is a common thought that being in a mobility scooter makes you a loser or something. So sitting down in a mobility scooter felt like I don't want to do it. But at some point, we got one offered from my in-laws who said, just take it. Because after surgery, you're going to need it to run some errands on your own, to go to the drugstore for medication, blah, blah. So they said, take it and practice with it before you go into surgery. And then I never went into surgery. And then I realized I was going to need the damn thing for many things in my life. And I didn't want to sit down in it. And then one day my husband said, and that was heartbreaking. He said, Mandy, I've been walking the dogs all alone for so many years now. You're no longer coming with me. I miss you. Can you please sit your bum down in the mobility scooter so that we can go together again? I did. In the dark, it was winter, great time to do a mobility scooter because nobody recognizes you. You can always just put your hair in front of your eyes so nobody will see it's you. Which is a good thing for getting used to it, right? I mean, you shouldn't keep doing that. I no longer do it. I mean, like, I'm now in a mobility. I now have a new one, a really cool one. Like one that doesn't look very loser at all. On the contrary, I'm quite chuffed with it anyway. But the first one that I tried was a very old person's one, a super slow one intended for people who shouldn't be able to drive very fast. And oh God, I was so embarrassed, and I felt such a loser for needing that thing. And with my mind, I know I wasn't a loser. With my mind, I know that people sitting in a mobility scooter are not losers. But there was something on the inside of me that said, Mandy, don't do it. Don't do it. It's going to make you a loser. In the beginning, I was so afraid to be recognized by anyone. I was afraid to run into people that I knew. But the reason why I felt so cramped up about that as well is because I didn't talk about my problem very much at all. There were very, very few people who knew about the issues with my ankle. And the reason was I had been talking about the chronic abdominal pain for so long, and I didn't want to bother anyone with it. It was like, oh, there she comes again. Yeah, sure. Now she's got a new chronic pain. Of course. The girl needs her attention, is what I thought people were going to think. And I thought maybe if people saw me sitting in a mobility scooter, they were thinking I was trying to aim for some pity and attention. These were just all incredibly ludicrous ideas. Because in all actuality, when I started to talk about my chronic pain, the new chronic pain, and when I said how difficult it was to sit down in a mobility scooter, people were so kind to me. People were so cheering me on. Do it, Mandy. Take your freedom back. Just sit your bum down in it. Enjoy it. Go, join your husband again. Enjoy the freedom. And also, and I said, yeah, but one day you can run into me. On a good day, I can run errands by bike maybe even. And then go to the supermarket and cycle back. That's on good days. But there are lots of days that I don't have good days. Then you will see me on the mobility scooter. Or maybe I do have a good day, but maybe I have some activities planned in the evening that I need to save my strength for. And then I also need to take my mobility scooter. And I was afraid people weren't going to understand. I thought maybe they're going to say she's just lazy on those days. Well, all that kind of stuff. And I sincerely believe that had I talked about this problem, these problems, these things before, it would have been so much easier for me. So what I want to do is I want to talk about it more, not me personally. I would love people with chronic pain to be more open about it. We are not weak with chronic pain. I mean, when 20 to 25% of the people have chronic pain, something is going on. Our species is getting sick from the way that we live. And I think something big is going on, and I think we need to talk about it. We need to make a little noise. We need to show ourselves in the outside world, because we need to live. Like, not just exist is what I did in the end, but like live a meaningful and active life, which I believe we can only do together with other people. So we do need to get out of the house. We do need to talk and share. So that's where my preach ends. Now, let me share my experiences, my illustrated journals. As I said, these have been my best friends. I didn't talk about my pain a lot, sometimes not at all. There were actually very good friends of mine who only found out about what was going on like a few months ago. I did write people tons of emails. I just never sent them. I recorded tons and tons and tons of video for my YouTube channel. I just never posted them. There was something holding me back, and I can't really put into words what it was, but the only place I felt safe to communicate about what was going on with me was in my journals. And I'm telling you, this is what kept me from jumping off a bridge. So let's see what I can show you. And before I show you, I want to explain to you that I'm doing this for a reason. What I invite you to do, if you like, is to let yourself be inspired by my pages, to see if you can draw something about your life. You don't have to have a style. You don't have to be able to draw very well. If you do stick figures, fine by me. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be a piece of art that you spend hours on. It can be a ballpoint pen and a scrap of paper. But I just would like to invite you to draw a certain situation in your life, something that's keeping you occupied right now. So maybe you have some worries, maybe you have something wonderful going on, maybe you have chronic pain as well, maybe you have some issues with someone, whatever it is. Don't make it too big, because this is a one instance thing only. Don't make it too big. I would advise against picking your biggest trauma. But I would like you to draw something and then email that to me, and I will explain to you after showing you these why I am asking you that. And before I continue, the last thing I want to say about it is it will be kept confidential. Whatever you send me will not be published anywhere. This is something I need for my personal input. So I'm going to show you some journal pages. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what they depict, just to give you, to kickstart your inspiration maybe, and to show you the diversity of what you could draw or paint. So I'm going to fold up a piece of scrap paper because I am going to censure. What I always do is, what I usually do is I make a drawing on this side and I write some text on this side. This is also where you will find swatches of the colors that I use, and sometimes I take some notes or make some notes about techniques that I used, or if I used anything like a photograph by a certain photographer or something. All the references I also write down. So here I was walking very uncomfortably. That's why I drew the cones rather than feet. We were walking through the snow. There was a little blizzard going on, which is something never happens here. And we ran into a woodpecker in a forest, and it would sit on this tree stump for a long time. So this is where I drew a happy thing. As you will see, I have a certain recognizable style in my illustrations. I'm not asking you to attempt the same thing. Style is something you develop over time by doing, not by copying anybody's work, but by doing it yourself. That's when something will eventually grow. So don't worry about style, just do your thing. Right then, at some point, do you know Labyrinth, the Jim Henson movie where Sarah confronts the Goblin King in the end and says, "You have no power over me," and then his whole world crumbles to pieces, and he floats and floats in the air. That's how I felt when we had a little puppy. You know, I raised some puppies, so I never thought it would throw me off my feet like it did, but it did. And that's how I sort of the labyrinth scene where Jarrett's world is falling apart is what I used for inspiration, to capture the moment of that little puppy there and what it did to my life. So if you start drawing your life, you're going to find that many things are metaphoric. So there's going to be a lot of symbols in it, and that's something you develop over time as well as you start drawing, is that you begin very literally, but soon you will start needing symbols to tell the story. And the wonderful thing about it is that many people will understand. Now I'm going to show you a heart-wrenching illustration that I never shared online before. This is something you need to understand. I was born with a heart defect that one of my uncles also had. He just never grew to be 10 years old. He died when he was just 9, because at the time he did not have surgery because it was not yet possible. I survived, and at this point I felt a really strong connection to my uncle who'd never had a chance to live. So this to me was a very sad page. I've never known him, but you know, for a while I needed to draw him, to lay him down somewhere, to honor him and acknowledge that he's existed. So, and then there is, like, this is a graphic one telling you there is some sort of nudity in it. If you're a boy, you might want to look away. If you're a woman of my age, you're going to recognize the situation. This is a gynecologist visit. And I personally felt that this page was hilarious. And here you can see the text and the swatches that I do while I am making these images. And, well, what was on my mind was the visit. I personally love creating these absurd images, and what I love even more is that when I show them to people, which I sometimes do, is that they get my sense of humor and appreciate such pages very much, because they say, oh God, do I recognize it? Yeah. Right. Now there is a waiting list situation illustration. I was feeling so hollow and empty, and this is how I captured it in an illustration. I tried to create as much hollowness and emptiness as I could. So sometimes you draw certain situations like now, and sometimes it's about, you know, like the things that you need 1,000 words to explain, and then you're not even saying what you mean. And sometimes there is a drawing that is, you know, a drawing can be in one glimpse, you can understand what the drawing says. Now here is a situation that happened last summer, is when I broke my toe. So talking about absurdity, here is my ankle. Oh, don't mind the crotch, that was a mistake. But, you know, that's okay. It's in a book. Nobody needs to see. I am showing you because I'm not aiming for perfection. Please don't aim for perfection either. What's most important here is, oh my God, I need medical help again. Here is the painful ankle, and whoopsie daisies, I broke my toe. Of course, the toe didn't really break off. But what I like, as I said, I like drawing the absurdity of a situation to make it even. It's one of the ways that I can level out any sense of catastrophe in my life, is by drawing it in an even much worse way that becomes humoristic. So when I leaf back through it, this page always makes me laugh at the situation because of the drawing. So it's, even when you draw difficult situations, eventually you can learn to give it a twist and to put some humor into it. And it's okay if nobody understands, right? It's just for you. But for me, it really helps. Okay, now I do need to censor again. There is a lot of personal text. Now this is something, I'm not going to explain every element in this picture, but this is when I had just heard that the specialized orthopedic hospital might not want to perform surgery on me as I had a heart defect. And this is how I felt. I felt like a pressure cooker, and there were test results here. And, you know, all of that was, and there are elements in here like my child graduated and the ankle thing, and I needed glasses and I needed blood tests and, well, all kinds of things. And the way I felt is like I was a pressure cooker inside, and the pressure was about to burst out. So a lot of metaphoric drawings. I'm wondering if when you're looking now, while you're looking, if you are seeing anything that sparks you, an idea in you of something that you might draw. Now, when talking about my surgery, in the time that I was hoping to get surgery, I was really afraid for that surgery. So what I did one day was I drew an image, a double page image, well, a single page, but some text, of reasons why it would be a very good idea, some motivations to get surgery. Now, if you look at this drawing, you can see that all the proportions are way off, you know, the head, the size of the feet, it all doesn't matter. What I also want to tell you is that if you draw your life, you know, don't be cramped up about the technique of the drawing, about composition, proportion, perspective. It doesn't really matter. What matters, the only thing that matters is getting the story across. So here is like the rehabilitation tools that I knew I was going to need after surgery: a walker, walking sticks. And I was trying to put a little sunshine in my mind with all the right reasons to get surgery. That is what's important, is that feeling, those thoughts I wanted to capture, the experience. You know, whether, you know, the length of the legs and the boobs and the head and the hips, whether there is any reality to it, it doesn't matter. Don't be hard on yourself when you start drawing your life. I mean, you can draw yourself as a potato as well. I mean, if you would like, you don't necessarily have to go for a human figure that's completely realistic. For me, I don't care about proportion, composition, and perspective. The only thing to me that matters is that my story comes across on this size of paper. Sometimes I'm using half this page extra, and in very rare occasions I take double page, but those occasions are super, super, super rare. So what I do is I tell my story in a very confined space, and that needs to become clear, and all the rest doesn't matter. So here is another another page that I can fully show you, and where you can see I'm especially proud of the tiles I created in the background, because I managed to, this sketchbook, these are all art creation sketchbooks. I don't know if you can see it, there is like a relief print here by Darlands, and I absolutely love them. The quality of the paper is absolutely not good for watercolor painting techniques, but I use watercolor to color these pages in, and what I pulled off actually is a painterly technique on this paper. I was really chuffed about that. But anyway, so what we're seeing here, this image is called Stuck. So I do give my pages a title, because I think giving a title is like a prompt that will make the audience look at the image in a certain way. So this is called Stuck. Well, I'm stuck still with this ankle on the waiting list, feeling hopeless. My skull is always open as it's a vessel, and these eggs, they stand for potential, for dreams, for ambitions, stuff like that. And I was trying to hold them, but it was getting hard. One was already broken, and I was being sucked into the hoover. And in this case, the hoover was a symbol for my home life. Like, that was the thing that was keeping me stuck, or I was getting stuck in my home life, whereas I wanted to go on and do things. As you can see, I'm really cramped up in the mouth of the hoover, and it looks very, very uncomfortable, which is exactly how I felt. So this image was more about how uncomfortable I felt in the situation than about making a very good drawing technically. Now here is another one, and this is something that I was afraid is going to get people confused and judge me for things, because last September I found out that with this foot I can actually dance, and I could dance for 1.5 hours, which is something I'd never expected. So I drew a picture of me dancing and feeling very, very happy, because I loved dancing. I always have. So the book, and it was explained to me later by a physical therapist, who said sometimes when we dance we put different kinds of pressure on the ankle, and then we can actually we can sometimes dance better than we can walk, and that was true. So here is another one. I have expressed how it feels to have a migraine. So it doesn't feel too good, as you can see. There's barbed wire, there is like green and yellow to represent nausea, there is extreme pain in the neck. It's the hypersensibility, my ears, my eyes, touch, that's why the barbed wire is around me here. All my senses, all the entire nervous system gets overactive, and there's this splitting headache of lightning crushing my skull. And here the big nose, because smells too are horrible when you have a migraine. Even when they're normally good smells, they just really, they trigger the nervous system to overreact. So even good smells can be horrible. Now, while I was still on the waiting lists, I was getting very depressed, and there were some thoughts in my head that I wanted to just swipe under the carpet. So I don't know if you can see it, but these are golden pins that I wanted to sweep under the carpet. And I'm not going to show you one of these, am I? Yeah, I was going to show you one of these. Sorry, two. This is the one that lasts. So here is another good moment when a young sparrowhawk visited my garden and sat still for me for an hour. So I took about 68 beautiful pictures of it in our garden, and then I created a drawing that I still need to finish painting, because straight after this drawing my rehabilitation started and I didn't have time to finish that one image. Now, more censorship. Here is my last journal illustration. I started doing fewer and fewer of these illustrations as my process in the rehabilitation clinic got more and more intense. This is the last big one I did, and it is about my fatigue. I'm exhausted during the program because it was so intense. That's why I didn't color in myself. I just gave some shading here and there. I am sitting in a dotted lazy chair with golden dots because, it was so comfortable at the time. And from my head comes white noise. So it's not that it's blank. It's not blank. My mind wasn't quiet. My mind was so overactive that it was white noise. So that's the thing I did. Now I'm going to show you the last image. As I said, I didn't have much time during rehab. So I eventually, at the end of the rehab, started experimenting with very quick techniques. So this is like almost a one-line drawing. Very quickly, I think done within 10 minutes. And then I spent another 3-4 minutes on coloring it in, just to capture the moment of me doing the walk training with the Nordic walking sticks. I've always judged the Nordic walking sticks. I never liked them and I thought they were rubbish. I mean, why wouldn't you be able to walk without walking sticks? It seemed nonsensical to me. But now with the disability that I have, I am in serious need of these walking sticks for training purposes. Right, so, oh God, it got me really warm and got me fired up. Anxious to start on a new drawing. I hope that maybe one of these pages sparked something inside of you that makes your fingers itch to get going. Now, whether you get going just for yourself or for me, that's fine with me. What I hope to do is to send a little spark into the world by saying drawing your experiences can be something very valuable. It's going to add to your life. There is a big difference between talking about your problems, talking about your life, the good things, and between drawing about your life or your problems. And what I would like to invite you to do is to give that a try, to make a drawing, even if you've never done it before, even if it's been 30 years ago since you drew. And if you're only 15 and you want to do this, fine. You're welcome to send in your drawings. What I would like, I will tell you why I am inviting you to do this. So, years ago, when I had the abdominal pain and when it wasn't too bad yet, so now we're talking about 8-9 years ago, I was working very hard on a book about illustrating, about drawing your life and about techniques to do it. It was like a workbook. But as my own chronic pain became worse and worse, it became much harder for me to work on the book. And eventually I let go of my work completely, almost completely. And over time, I lost contact with the book, if you know what I mean. I was into the project completely at the time. But then when time wears on, you go back to the book, it looks like ruins. You left something behind that still, there's debris all around it that used to be in my old life. So what I would really love is for people to send me their journal page, a diary page, a drawing of their life, and to tell me a little bit about the situation that they drew, Just, can be just 1 or 2 lines. A little bit more text is fine as well. But what's important is that you try to capture that moment. And the reason why I think I need that kind of input is to feel the spark. Because right now, I mean, I have a friend who journals well. I know her work. And I have this work too. But I work in just one style. And I have a certain way of approaching my drawings. And it's okay to work from there for myself. But in writing the book and in picking the project back up, what I would like is how other people approach it. Because I need to rekindle not the fire to make the book. The fire to make the book is there, or else I wouldn't have picked it up. But it's like when you have a plug that has like a few of those metal things that need to connect. It's like 2 are connecting already, but the other 2 are not yet connecting. And I am looking for other people's input. And the reason why I'm not going online for art journal pages to get inspired is because many people who do art journaling do so from the perspective that's nearly scrapbooking, as in making a pretty page. I'm not looking for pretty pages. I am looking for people who tell a story in an image. It doesn't matter if it's only simple, if it's rudimentary, or if you feel you're falling short, that you're not really quite capturing it. It doesn't matter. The attempt, the attempt to try it, to try your best. And even if it's just ballpoint and a scrap, or if it is a pencil drawing, it doesn't have to be art. You can, color and materials, they help you express. But if you have just a little bit of time, or if you don't have all that stuff lying about, no problem. A ballpoint pen and a scrap piece of paper is enough already. If you can only do stick figures, I have to tell you, I once taught a stick figure course to tell story. It worked fantastic. What I'm going to say now, many people hesitate to join me in this kind of project in the past because they said, I can't draw, and they let that idea stop them. But the thing is that if you cannot draw very well, you have an advantage over people who can draw very well. Because in this case, technique sometimes hinders your spontaneity, your metaphoric capability of storytelling. Because when people, have the skills and the technique, then they sometimes they are sometimes too focused on the perfection of the outcome of a beautiful page. Whereas when you don't have the skills and the technique, you're not expecting a great piece of art, and you're much more free in storytelling. And I'm not just saying this, I taught art journaling, but in this way, for years, for over 15 years. And I've always found that people who couldn't draw were incredibly surprised by what they could express, because they can do a lot with the little they can do, because they still have that spontaneity, because they are not too highly critical of, whether they used the right techniques or whether it's perfect or not. Whereas people who could draw very well sometimes had great trouble expressing what they really meant, as they got lost in trying to make the most beautiful image. So if you want to give me an incentive for the book, I'd appreciate it very much. I'll tell you how you can do it. So you can send your work to me through email. It is mandy@mandyvangoeie.com. So it's just like my YouTube name, mandy@mandyvangoeie.com. So, and then I would like, the image as an attachment, and then a few words about what you drew, the situation that you drew. You don't have to get too personal if you don't want to. It can just be a very, or maybe just a title. Maybe you can just give me a title. You don't necessarily have to like open up completely, because I understand that you wouldn't do that to a stranger very easily. Although some people do it very easily to a stranger, more easily than to people they know. Whatever you want, that's okay. And then what I would also like to know, if you can just, you know, push enter once or twice, and then write down if you have any previous experience doing this. That's also something I would like to know. So what am I going to do with the images? I think I'm going to print them, and I'm going to put them in a folder, and I'm not going to publish them ever. I'm going to keep them to myself as an incentive to work on the book. So, you know, if in the future, for instance, I would be writing the book and I would be thinking, oh, there's this one drawing, I would love to have that in the book. Should that occasion arise, I will always contact the people concerned and say, hey, look, you remember you sent me that drawing. It would be perfect in the book. Could I perhaps use your image? I would always do that. I would never ever choose to use it as input for my book. The only input it will be for my own brain to connect all the dots rather than just 2 of the 4, so to speak. Is there anything else that you might like to know? Yeah, let's say, what if you get going and you feel like you want to send in more than one drawing of your life? You're welcome to. Then please use 1 email per image. So that's going to be an email with the image attached, and then a small piece of text explaining what you've drawn and what your experience is with drawing your life. So a new email for every image, that would be the best way, as that would, for me, be for me that's the most. Otherwise I might lose oversight, because I'm still at this place where my energy is still low. It's a lot better than it was, but it's still low. Right now is before noon even. And I need to make this video very early, or else it will wear me out completely. But as I still am really tired, I do need to have things around me a little bit organized. So that would help me tremendously in keeping oversight of everything that comes in. I will also, by the way, not show your pages in a YouTube video. I will not do anything of that. Whatever you send me will be for my eyes only. And the reason I might print it out is because I like to have things on paper, and I would like to use them as a reference, but a reference I would keep to myself. So it wouldn't be going anywhere else. Right, so that's it. It was a very long video. I hope you don't mind. I am going to put some chapters into it so people can skip to the part that they are interested in. And if you feel like responding, you're welcome to. I do, with my energy level now, have to see whether I can, read and respond immediately, or it's going to take some time. I'm going to do my best to read and reply to everything. And if you want, you can sign up for my newsletter. It is now going to be in Substack. I already created the Substack a little while ago. I just don't think I've ever sent out a Substack newsletter yet. I think I've yet to try that one. But I moved from MailChimp to Substack because I didn't like the way MailChimp was working anymore. There were some things that were not very practical, so I went over there. I would appreciate it if you did sign up, if you're interested in, making the drawings of your life, because I intend to start more projects in this way. I might be doing sneak previews. I might be, sharing some exercises with people, as tryouts to see how it goes. What explanation do you need? Is it a good description? How does it come across? Is this usable for you? Can you do this on your own as well? and all kinds of stuff like that. So if you're interested, then please subscribe to my Substack. The link will be below. I don't send out newsletters very regularly yet, and I don't intend to send out that many newsletters at all anyway, because I don't want to flood your mailboxes. Right, I'm going to end this video now. I'm going to take a little bit of rest, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I'd love to hear any remarks if you have them, comments, and yeah, I really hope that some of you are going to send me a drawing of your life. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'll be seeing you again in the next video. Until then, take very good care of yourself. And remember, if you're struggling with chronic pain, you know somebody struggling with chronic pain, go see a doctor. Go find help. There is help out there in this world. See you next time. Bye.